Call to order the regular adjourned meeting of the Winnebago County Board for Thursday, September 29th, 2016. Under agenda changes, under the Operations Committee, please remove items D and E. And then under public participation, add John Tack Brantley, Helping Transforming Rockford, and Steve Lucas, River Patrol budget cuts. Any other agenda changes? Clerk will call the roll.
Wilson? Present. Biondo? Boomer? Padusha? Yes. Girl? Present. Goral? Guevara? Present. Hoffman? Present. Jury? Present. Kelly? Here. Lyon? Here. McDonald? Present. Nicolosi? Here. Red? Present. Salgado? Here. Schultz? Here. Sweeney? Here. Tassoni? Present. Webster? Here. Westcott? Present. 20 present, no absent.
Well, everybody's here. Must be something important tonight. Okay, we have a quorum. Invocation and Pledge of Allegiance. Board Member Keith McDonald. Alls, please rise.
Dear Heavenly Father, we come before you tonight and thank you for the many blessings you have given each of us. We ask that you give us the wisdom to see our problems and the knowledge to fix them. We ask for your help during our troubled times and ask that you help us find solutions that will benefit our county. And Father, we ask that you watch over the people serving us and our military and first responders. Please bring comfort and compassion to the families who have lost loved ones who gave their life while protecting us. Please help our veterans who have found themselves in dark places and are now contemplating suicide. Please show them the worth they have in our world and the purpose they serve in their families. In your name we pray, amen. I pledge indivisible.
Okay, John Tack Brantley. We have 3 minutes, John, as you recall. I think this is your third trip, I believe, so. Pretty close.
I get 3 more next year?
Yep.
You ain't stopping me yet, have you? Good evening, everyone. I'm the precinct committeeman in the downtown area. This week we brought a pastor from Boston. His name is Jerry Brown from Boston, to talk about going into the neighborhood to teach clergies and working with the police department and the sheriff's department and building a relationship with the community. What I want to stress and what I want to talk about is that I talked about and I put out cards is transparency. You have the 1% sales tax. 1/3 of it goes towards the jail system. 1/3 of it goes towards recidivism. 1/3 of it goes towards preventative programs. And with that sales tax, if you look at the Rockford Police Department and the city, they have what they call a Rockstead meeting, and they also have a Constead meeting. But the Sheriff's Department, they do not have that. Also, if you remember the Baltimore case, after the Baltimore case, we had 27 counts as to what the police could do to engage the community. Well, the Sheriff's Department do not have that. The question is, why not? If we want to build a relationship, we have to build a relationship by having transparency. And since we have that 1% sales tax, there should be some transparency. If we look at the fact that I look at Mount Zion Church, and I also look at the fact of Salvation Army, where we want to have programs there. We want to work with the youth and the young adults. I use, for example, I have nothing against West Gateway Coalition because I'm at all their meetings. I have nothing against the Boys and Girls Club. But if you look at the Boys and Girls Club, if you give them the funds, which is good and fancy, but they only cater to the little kids from 5 to 12 years old. Then 5 and 12 years old, they still got to go back. We left out the teenagers and we left out the single mom. That's who the kids look up to. We need programs where we can work with the teenagers and also the kids. I need transportation where I can go from point A to point B. If I look at an example, it's just like when we walked to Black Hawk, before we got to Black Hawk, a 22-year-old young man got killed. Why? Because they was out late at night For what reason, we don't know. Then we look at the Boys and Girls Club at the Black Hawk. They say they have nothing to do on Saturdays. We need to have programs on Saturdays to give our youth something to do so they can have somewhere to go on the weekend. And just like me, I take the kids. If you see me any given time, I'm moving 40 to 60 kids or more. But that's only a drop in the bucket. I have Rockwood Housing Authority van, but it can only hold 12 to 15 youth at a time. So I'm getting other people to participate. If I use, for example, last night, I took 25 adults to Rudy Valdez that was running for mayor. They'd never been to an event like that before. Just taking them out that environment, showing them something different. And if we look at Mount Zion Church, they got the facility and they got the parishioners, they got the workers that's ready to work in Fairground, which they already doing. We cutting grass. We also getting ready to get funds to start removing the snow. But we need to have programs in the evening time to work with our young kids. Because they tell me, John, you just playing. They are right. I am just playing when I cannot help our youth who got felons, or our adults who got records, or our young moms who need jobs, who need babysitters, but they don't have babysitters. So we need to find a way that we can work together instead of what they say, I'm just playing. We need to find a program. We need to bring that program. And just like me, I'm over the Renewal Turning Point program. I'm not worried about the 501c3 because the Mount Zion Church have that. The Salvation Army have that. What I'm worried about is getting as many of our youth off the streets and our young adults off the streets and giving them something to do, but also having the transparency with the Sheriff's Department so we don't be like Ferguson, we don't be like South Carolina, we don't be like Tucson or Oklahoma, and I can go on and on. We need to say, when they talk about Black Lives Matter, it's not about racism, it's about what's been happening to us. And with that being said, thank you for giving me that time to speak. And I will be back.
Okay. All right, Steve Lucas, please come forward.
Hello, my name is Steve Lucas. I've lived on the Rock River for 30 years, skied for the Ski Bronx 20 years, and an honorary member for the past 10 years. I've been on the Rock River Homeowners Board of Directors for 20 years and the president for the past 8. The Rock River Homeowners Association represents 975 homes from downtown Rockford to downtown Rockton. We're also the voice for thousands of boaters that use our beautiful river every summer. It was brought to my attention that the sheriff has removed the no-wake and danger buoys along with his boat for the season due to budget constraints. The Rock River Homeowners Association is very happy with the new administration, and Sheriff Caruana is very pro-river. The river is our community's centerpiece. The development of the Riverwalk, Prairie Street Brew House, and UW Sports Facility are just a few examples of progress on the waterfront. Our higher than average crime rate is a problem in this area, and we are all aware of The Sheriff's Department is asking for a small budget increase to help combat the problems. If the increase is not approved by the board members tonight, the sheriff will be forced to cut back in several areas. The River Patrol is one of these areas. Next year is setting up to be a very busy year on the river. The Ski Bronx will be hosting the state and national water ski tournaments at Shorewood Park. These events bring in thousands of competitors and visitors to our area. We rely on the 2 sheriff's boats to regulate river traffic during the tournaments. The 2 sheriff's boats are required to perform this task to make the event safe for all. Having the patrol boat out on Friday nights during the weekly shows also promotes awareness for the no-wake zone at Shorewood Park show site. During the ride home after the 4th of July fireworks, the 2 sheriff's boats with lights flashing keeps boats at a no-wake for a safe ride home for hundreds of boaters every year. The Sheriff Department maintains the operating costs for 2 of the 4 river level gauges on the river. The Rock River Homeowners Association raised over $15,000 in private donations to help install the Davis Park river level gauge this summer. And this has dramatically helped regulate water levels for homeowners and boaters alike. The Anything That Floats raft race and Rock River Regatta also depend on the sheriff's boats for safety. The sheriff boat was on the river in early July to help apprehend a jet ski involved in a hit and run of a pontoon boat. The Rock River Homeowners Association also donates orange ski flags to the sheriff boats to give out to boaters who are unaware of the new law. This lets families keep enjoying a day on the water. The public has come to depend on the sheriff's boats for tows when broke down. The homeowners have also appreciated at times of high water the sheriff's boat being out to enforce the no-wake level. The 1% public safety tax was passed to help fund these types of programs. If the money is going where it is supposed to go, there should not be a problem supporting the increase to the sheriff's budget. We're all proud of our river, but ashamed of our crime rate. Help the sheriff grow his department and reduce the crime rate in Winnebago County. I encourage all board members to vote yes to help keep our river and community safe. Thank you for your time.
Okay, may I please have a motion to approve the minutes from August 25th, 16, and lay over the minutes from September 8th, 16. Mr. Guevara moves, Mr. Jury, Mr. Salgado seconds. Additions, corrections, deletions? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Minutes are approved. Announcements, communications, Clerk Mullins.
The items listed below were received as correspondence.
They'll be placed on file. Any other announcements or communications? Two things real quickly. Our October 27th board meeting from 5 to 6 in this room, the health department will be offering flu shots to board members. And then also, if you have any, specifically Mr. Webster and some in Ms. Lyons districts, the Great Lakes Rail Basin, they have a website. It's called, I think, greatlakesbasin.net, that you can send in, and they'll guarantee they'll answer questions within 24 hours. So I'd encourage people with questions to go ahead and find that out. There's at least a 3-year process here. I'm told there'll be like 15 different alignments submitted. The Surface Transportation Board in total makes this decision. We have really nothing to say about it, nor other community. And then I'm told by year end, or possibly first quarter of next year, they'll get down to 3 or 4 different alignments. Then there'll be a couple-year environmental study. There'll be hearings in each of these alignment areas, and then the Great Lakes Rail people will also conduct hearings in these areas. So there'll be ample opportunity to respond to this, and who knows if it goes at all, or which alignments get submitted. Mr. Webster?
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up, Chairman. I was going to do that myself. I spent the better part of today and yesterday, actually, fielding phone calls and emails. That railroad, as it's designed now, comes through through Wisconsin, and when it hits the Illinois border, it's right in my district. And it follows clear down through my district into Faye's district down to 1, so naturally that's why I'm getting so many calls. And I just tell my other board members, if you get these calls from these folks, you can refer them to me, and I'm not afraid to speak to them about it. There a number of things there. The calls that I got, most were in opposition to it for varied reasons. I tried to tell them, most of them gave them the information about going to that website. You're right, it's greatlakesbasin.net. And they do have a great website. A lot of the questions that many of the people asked me about it, there were the same questions, but on their website, a lot of these questions are answered. And I did a test today because they claimed on their website that if you submit a question, they will answer your question. Email a question to them, they'll answer it within 24 hours. So just for funds today, I did that, and they did. They responded within 2 hours to my question. So I'll give them kudos for that. But having said that, I've stood with the Farm Bureau over the years, with the ethanol plant issues, with the wind farms, with the pork plant, all these issues. I've stood with the Farm Bureau because I too am a Farm Bureau member, and I represent agricultural districts. So in that vein, I will be on record as being opposed to this railroad as it is.
Let's at least hear the data.
As it is proposed. But
Okay.
yes, at least
Very
check out
good.
that website.
Thank you. May I please have a motion to approve the consent agenda? Moved by Mr. George, second by Mr. Hoffman. Mr. Gurl? Yes, I thought so. Any discussion on the consent agenda? Any objections? Hearing none, the clerk will cast a yes vote for all members present. The consent agenda is approved. Okay, Finance Committee, Mr. Biondo. This is one I would let you do at your chair if you so desire.
Just want everybody to know I have the stamina. If you didn't watch the debate, well, too bad.
You're going to build a wall too, aren't you?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. Just bear with me. I have to spread this stuff out. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, I think. We'll first like to read in Budget Amendment 2016-047 to be laid over.
Okay, so ordered.
And it was approved unanimously, I believe, by the Finance Committee, so I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules.
I think we need to get the budget off the table, do we not?
Oh,
Mr.
no,
Chairman?
I'm still
No,
doing
you're
20.
good.
Yeah,
Okay.
that don't come,
Okay,
that
so we're
doesn't come
moving-
up to item E, I think.
Got it. Suspending rules to consider that this evening, seconded by Mr. Sweeney, Mr. Boomer, Mr. Westcott, and Mr. Hoffman. Any objection to suspending the rules? Hearing none, the clerk cast a yes vote for all members present. Rules are suspended. Mr.
Thank you. I'd
Biondo?
like to make a motion to approve Budget Amendment 2016-047. It's $44,987 that was left over from debts that have been paid in full or refinanced, and it would be put in the transfer fund.
Okay. Seconded by Mr. Sweeney and Mr. Jury and Mr. Hoffman and Mr. Westcott.
There's no cost.
Move to approve. Any objections? Hearing none, the clerk will cast a yes vote for all members present. That amendment is approved. Mr. Biondo?
All right, thank you. Item C is like to make a motion to approve, should I just do these each individually, C and D?
C and D?
They kind of tie together.
If it's no objection to the board, we can consider them both in one motion.
There are ordinances authorizing the issuance of general obligation alternative refunding bonds for public safety sales tax and quarter-cent sales tax of the County of Winnebago. One is for the aggregate amount not to exceed $6 million. The other is for the aggregate amount not to exceed $18,850,000 for the purpose of refunding outstanding general obligation alternative bonds. One was Series 2013A, the other is Series 2006E of county-related expenditures. This is basically the restructuring of the bonds. And I move, so moved.
Move to approve. Seconded by Mr. Sweeney, Mr. Jury, Mr. Gurl, Mr. Westcott, and Mr. Guevara. Now, discussion? Any objection to the motion? Clerk will call the roll.
Biondo?
Yes.
Boomer? Badusha? Gurl?
Yes.
Gorel? Guevara?
Yes.
Hoffman?
Yes.
Jury?
Yes.
Kelly?
No.
Lyon? No. McDonald?
Yes.
Nicolosi?
Yes.
Red? Salgado?
Yes.
Schultz? Sweeney?
Yes.
Tassoni?
Yes.
Webster? Westcott?
Yes.
Wilson? 16 yes, 4 no.
The ordinance regarding the bonds are approved. Mr. Biondo?
All right, thank you. So item C's and D are approved. I would now like to make a motion to take the 2017 budget off the table and move for its approval.
Move the motion, seconded by Mr. Sweeney, Mr. Nicolosi, Mr. Westcott, Mrs. Gurl, Mr. Gurl. Like it off the table, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The budget is now off the table. Mr. Biondo.
All right, thank you. I'd like to first make a motion to approve 2017 budget amendment, I guess it's dash 001, as outlined in the packet and recommended by the Finance Committee. Trying to find what it is. It's 109,000, I know that, but I have it here. Yes, it was the Health Department to do the regular salary, IMRF and FICA. It's basically, I can't read it hardly, original budgets was submitted by the Health Department. They were reducing their budget by the 12% we thought we'd have to do before the bonds and the other things, and they just want to reestablish the money that, to get it down to just 3.93 instead of 12.02. So that would be 109,878 restored to the Health Department's budget, and I so move.
Seconded by Mr. Jury, Mrs. Gorel, and Mr. Gurl. Any discussion? Any objection to the motion? Hearing none, the clerk will cast the yes vote for all members present. The amendment is approved. Mr. Biando?
All right, thank you. I would like to, let's see, request if there are any other written amendments to be presented. Mr. Chairman?
Yes, thank you. I have several here from various directions, so we just summed them up into one. So let me go through them. We should have a packet that looks just like this. Let me go through those front to back first, and then we'll come back. The first is some recent research going on in the jail itself, 820, 840, somewhere bouncing in population. There's a need. There's 155 correction officers. There is a dire need there. And I would call that clearly a crisis at this point. And I know we've dealt with this some before, but they're down to 155. People have left, and as you know, we've had to adjust budgets accordingly. So what we're suggesting here is that we add 10 correction officers, and not until November 1 and then January 1 to beef up that corrections manpower. It is not a safe environment. I know that right now. I haven't been around a long time. That's 623,500. Next, we have, this is really dealing with safety in our own building, but recall the administration building has no security whatsoever. We have once in a while an occasional deputy coming through. So what we're asking for here is an auxiliary deputy, and it's not a 24/7 operation there, it's a 40-hour. But we have two entrances. We have the front on Elm Street, and we have the one in the concourse that is soon to open again. Neither one of which can be closed for fire, security, et cetera, handicap reasons. So we're looking at an auxiliary deputy at 40,000 versus the full deputies. And then we've got the issue of the assessment center and probation. And you know, they've cut actually in half the number of kids that are coming into that facility, which means they're not being arrested or issued something and off they go. And we know, and those in the business know, that that's having an impact on crime and shootings, et cetera, especially in that age level. So we really need, I feel it's urgent to reinstate that deputy, and the FOP has agreed to go 6 months with an auxiliary, which lowers the cost, and then, of course, it would be a full-time from that point forward. Total of this amendment's 148.8, which covers the security in both of these I talked about. And only along the lines of probation, with that, recall that they did an amendment in since January that really had not been voted on to date, and they did meet their budget last year. We've got 250,000 in reductions going in right now. They cut 5 last year, and there is some real issues there that you can argue that's maybe one of our best alternative programs is probation. So I'm asking you to consider 4 of those, about an 11-month period, total 173, 126. That would be then reinstated from that standpoint. And then we have something that's been before you before, a reduction by combining, actually, all we're doing here is doing what we are right now with the finance and the auditor's department. So they would be combined into under the auditor, which is purely the accounting function. You have already approved Heidi Voorhees, professional in counties, to seek out county administrator as well as a budget director, finance director, however you want to call it. So that needs to get in the works, and I can say we would invite the two candidates for the job I'm in to participate in now that process. I can tell you this later date, it's probably going to be December before there's candidates to come forth anyway. So they'll have obviously input in who that is, and that of course requires the advice and consent of the county board. So that is a deduct of $121,422. And then we come off of that, it's about 9, and you see the Mr. Chaplin's compilation on the next page, how we get to that point. Then under the host fees, there's a couple changes. It's a deduct of $113,000, and we've got the Kolkmeyer Consulting down $6,000 as far as what we're paying there, and the Neighborhood Network an additional $6,000, bring that up to 12, which is where it was. So that's absolutely revenue neutral from what's before you. A Center of Nonviolence, Zion West deducts of 50%. Those are 2-year programs, so this is reducing to 1 year, at which time they can produce their results, and you can make a determination if to continue funding or not. And then Youth Service Network is one that's an excellent program that we funded through our alternatives, and then they fell again onto the state issues. But that's an excellent program. It's a Female for Girls. Highly recommend that as well. And then under the Rockfast Manufacturing, a deduct of $50,000, and Keep Northern Illinois Beautiful, a deduct of $50,000. So all in all, it's down $113,000, that particular fund. That gives you a summary of that. How do we pay for it? I think Mr. Chapman was at $960 total, something in that neighborhood. So if we take the deducts that I talked to you about, which includes the auditor, host fees, and then we also have a check coming back, we feel, next week. It was a result of the purchasing issue, which is about $440,000 that we would apply to this. So we're somewhere in about the $300,000 range of additional funds that I recommend out of the 1% fund balance. We have over $2 million in that, and that won't have any impact to our bond rating or anything else, but it's meeting some awful tough needs here, believe me. So with that, I guess we'd open that up for discussion, Mr. Chair. I guess we need to move it and get it on the floor.
Yes, I would make a motion to approve the 2017 amendments, 2 through 6, I believe.
Yes, under the motion, second by Mr. Sweeney, Mr. Westcott, Mr. Hoffman, Mrs. Gurl, Mr. Juria, Mr. Gurl, did I get you? Did I miss anyone? Okay. Mr. Nicolosi, sorry. So it's properly before you, discussion. Mr. Cavallo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would be interested in pulling out the last item and voting on it separately.
Which is at the host fees?
Yeah.
Okay. Not a problem. So that would be voting all but that. Okay, discussion?
Everything but the 113,000, right?
Yeah, the 113 deduct, yes. Okay. Any other discussion? Mr. Wilson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would be remiss if at least I didn't bring this up. When Sheriff Myers was in control of the Sheriff Department, I made efforts to talk to him about minority hiring and promotions, and in doing so, he put forth some effort, but he wasn't successful. And so the new sheriff is you don't get a pass from me about that. African Americans and Hispanics make up the largest groups that are minority in Winnebago County and Rockford. And in saying that, out of 430 employees that are under your domain, 24 are African American and 16 is Hispanic. Percentile basis, 5.58% is African American and 0.36 is Hispanic. I am deeply saddened about this. I hope that in the future you can please look at trying to do something better than lip service, because we all can give that. Don't cost anything. But budgets and that kind of thing do. There's no supervisor level person that's on the command staff, the people that drive around in these vehicles. Zero. There's 2 African Americans that are sergeants that are in the jail. And that's all that you have. So you need to sit down with your staff and come up with some kind of a proposal and a plan of action to make something happen. Because again, talk is cheap. Thank you.
Okay. So we have items 2, 3, 4, and 5. Mr. Guevara,
Yes.
time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As we push to engage crime in our community, I think that it is important to also work very hard to improve to reach out to minority communities in the employed population within the county across the board and in the Sheriff's Department. And I look forward to further conversations and moving in that direction.
Okay. Yes, Mr. Ben.
All right. No, I just,
Should we take Mr. Schultz and then
I'm going to be deliberately brief in my comments. This, by far, is the worst budget process out of the 8 that I've been involved with, inclusive of these last-minute, literally last-minute budget amendments. Thank you.
all right. So we've moved to approve, I'm sorry.
we got anybody to speak here? Mr. Fiducia?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This will be directed to Mr. Chapman, reference budget amendment number 2 for the $623,518. We're going to hire 5 in November and then 5 in January. What in a 2-year period? What would the legacy costs of those 10 deputies or corrections officers be? And do we have a contingency to make sure that we can keep them employed for a county to keep the jail up to staff?
Okay, take a stab at it, Mr. Chairman.
I'll try. Part of the reason that we moved the dates back is because we felt that they wouldn't necessarily have the individuals available to be hired on October 1st, if you want to talk about that. In terms of future costs, you're probably looking at, I'm trying to remember what the overall cost was. I think it was in the neighborhood of $650,000 to $670,000. Obviously, any pay adjustments would need to be incorporated into future budgets and so on. And these dollars would become part of the overall budget structure that we would have to fund in future years.
Okay, but my question is, what would that cost the county per year for 10 more deputies?
You just told it.
First of all, it's correctional officers.
So that they're deputies.
Well, there's a difference in the cost.
What would that be?
I think it's about $700,000.
So in other words, our budget would have to increase $700,000 next year to keep these people employed?
No, that would be the total cost. This year, it's costing us 623. Next year, it would be about 700,000.
So you'd have to have 60 or 70 more.
Okay, further discussion?
Yeah, I want to just say, the one thing with this one, too, was the fact that, well, I'm sorry, it's not this one. It's that we're trying to keep people, too, for at least the next 2017. And the fact that, it costs to train people, if, we just across the board cut all of this, then it would cost us more money to train people if we got the revenue next year. If we don't get it, then we're going to have to make a decision at that point. If we go down further with our revenue that's coming in, then we may not be able to keep it going.
Mrs. Lyon?
Thank you, Chairman. Brings up my question. I have yet to see anything from HR or the Sheriff's Office. I had recommended almost a year ago that there be the inclusion of a provision in the correction officer contracts that if in fact we train them and they leave before a certain period, that money has to come back to the county. And I still haven't seen those contracts and that provision. And I really think if we're hiring this many people and if we're concerned about retention, that provision has to be in the contract to help us out with our budget.
I think that can strongly be suggested. It'll have to be bargained the next session, which
Right.
I think is a year off.
Right. And then, if I may, did I understand that we are voting separately on amendment number 6 from the others?
That's correct,
Can
2
we
through
vote
5.
separately on amendment number 5 from the rest as well?
We can do whatever you want. And 5 is the auditor
the auditor.
finance.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have it was sent out from the auditor and explained it all, but with the terminology in that, I needed to create a flow chart myself, and it was complex, but it looks like we save money, and we have the right people doing the right job, and it was the way it used to be in 2006, so.
Mr. Sweeney?
Thank you, Chairman Christensen. I guess I just want to say a few comments about, the process itself is relatively imperfect, of course. I mean, it's the legislative process. It's not a cold cut and dry thing, and I've had similar complaints, Mr. Schultz, as to what you've had, but, it ebb and flows or whatnot. But I will say, in this set of circumstances with these amendments, and even this budget in general, there's been a lot of doom and gloom and a lot of, negativity directed at basically what we're doing and what we've done, and I just disagree with that wholeheartedly. I mean, there's differences of opinions, respectable on both sides, about how we're funding different things and what we're doing, but in my opinion, looking at it holistically, we've squeezed the heck out of different departments, probably overcut in certain circumstances. We've not squeezed our portion of the property tax levy as much as possible. We've left millions of dollars on the table there that we could have been levying today. People come in and talk about the public safety sales tax and things like that, but what they may or may not know is that the revenue is relatively stagnated, and so we basically had to be really creative about how we continue to, fund things and appropriate money to things that we think are important, which we've done, and not decreased our bonding revenue or our bonding ratings, our credit scores, so we haven't, dipped too deep into savings accounts and whatnot. So I'm not as negative on what's been happening over the last, 3, 4, 5, or 6 years in general, because really we could have been gouging the taxpayers a lot more, and we're not. Now, some people on this board are on the side of an equation where they're willing to take certain votes and make certain decisions to allocate funds to places that particular mindset has thought to be important, which is the criminal justice system and apparatus, the corrections officers, the deputies, and then, the probation officers are certainly part of that. The whole deal there is, you can't just affect one and not affect the other. It's a kind of a living, breathing thing that it's all geared together. So this is just, a year ago, I would have liked to take a different route to get here, and we tried that, and it didn't really work as well as some of us had wanted it to, but we kind of gained traction, in my opinion, and positive results piece by piece by piece, and then here's just another piece. So we're trying to push resources in a certain direction that do good things, and that's not a bad thing. And I just want to reassure some of my colleagues that are hearing a lot of the doom and gloom that it really isn't that way when you look at it from that kind of a time frame. So, thank you.
Okay. Motion is for items 2, 3,
And 4.
4 at this time.
Yes.
Clerk will call the roll.
Boomer? Padusha? Gurl? Goro? Guevara? Hoffman? Jury? Kelly? Lyon? McDonald? Nicolosi? Red? Salgado? Schultz? Sweeney? Tassoni? Webster? Westcott? Wilson? 18 yes, oh, I'm sorry,
I didn't
Biondo?
get to vote. Yes, I just made the motion. That's all.
18 yes, 2 no.
Amendments 2, 3, and 4 are approved.
I'd like to move to approve amendment 5, 2017-5.
Seconded by Mr. Jerry. And now discussion on item 5. Hearing none, clerk will call the roll.
Padusha? Gurl? Goro? Guevara? Hoffman? Jury? Kelly? Lyon? McDonald? Nicolosi? Red? Delgado? Schultz? Sweeney? Tassoni? Webster? Westcott? Wilson? Biondo?
Yes.
Boomer? 17 yes, 3 no.
Amendment 5 is approved. Mr. Biondo.
Move to approve amendment 2017-006, the host fee fund.
Seconded by Mr. Jerry and Mr. Westcott. In discussion. Discussion? Clerk will call the roll. We have
Girl.
discussion. I'm sorry, Mr. Guevara.
What was the rationale behind reducing the Rockfast grant by $50,000?
At this point, they have money down on a sale to an outfit from China. Those jobs will be there, by the way, but a buyout of that place, I think that could be revisited, but at this point, this gets them far enough along to be able to have that space available, so I thought that was appropriate. Certainly can be added in if you so desire, that's up to you, but at this point, I'd like to see them get a little further along. This is one recall, we put a little over 200,000 at this point, so. Matter of fact, they're over to see the city tomorrow, so I'd like to see the city put a few bucks in too, wouldn't hurt.
Yeah.
Okay? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thought I was going to call.
Clerk will call the roll.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thought I'd try it.
Gurl? Goro? Guevara? Hoffman? Jury? Kelly? Lyon? McDonald? Nicolosi? Red? Salgado? Schultz? Sweeney? Tassoni? Webster? Westcott? Wilson? Biondo?
Yes.
Boomer? Padusha? 17 yes, 3 no.
The amendment is approved. Mr. Biondo?
All right, I'd like to make a motion to approve the 2017 budget as amended.
Heard the motion, second by Mr. Sweeney, Mr. Hoffman, Mr. Gurl, Mr. Webster, Mr. Westcott, and Mr. Nicolosi, Mr. Salgado, Mr. Jury. And discussion, Mr. Wilson is a second. Any discussion? Clerk will call the roll.
Goro. Guevara. Hoffman. Jury. Kelly. Lyon. McDonald. Nicolosi. Red. Salgado. Schultz. Sweeney. Tassoni. Webster. Westcott. Wilson. Biondo.
Yes.
Boomer. Fiducia. Gurl. 15 yes, 5 no.
The 2017 budget is approved. Thank you. Mr. Drury?
Mr. Chairman, I want to thank you personally and Mr. Chapman for all the hard work you've put on this in the long hours, and the people in the finance committee, the finance department that go unnoticed every day and how hard they work. Thank you.
Thank you. Next year at this time, we'll be on a golf course, I think, Mr. Chapman and I. Yeah, Mrs. Gurl?
Thank you, Chairman. I want to thank Mr. Biondo for all his hours and all his notes. Thanks, Ted.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, what item?
Mr. Biondo?
Let's see, do we do the annual ordinances? I make a motion to approve the 2017 annual appropriation ordinance, or do I have to bring it from the table first?
Nope, you're good.
Oh, it's laid over from the September 4th.
Seconded by Mr. Sweeney and Mr. Jury. Discussion? Clerk will call the roll.
Guevara. No. Hoffman. Yes. Jury. Yes. Kelly. Lyon. McDonald. Yes. Nicolosi. Yes. Red. Yes. Salgado. Yes. Schultz. No. Sweeney. Yes. Tassoni. Yes. Webster. Yes. Westcott. Yes. Wilson. Yes. Biondo.
Yes.
Boomer. Fiducia.
Yes.
Gurl. Yes. Goro. Yes. Guevara. Oh, you did?
He did
I'm
vote.
sorry. I'm sorry.
Wait a minute. This is Winnebago, not Cook County.
Yeah, 15 yes, 5 no.
Okay, we're not,
Annual appropriation ordinance is approved.
all right, well, we're not quite done yet.
I think you could take these all at once based on the earlier vote.
Right, because of the amendments that we approved, some of the items as in the budget are changed. Item I would be for the health fund in the amount of $2,500,000, and amend the levy by increasing the amount by the $109,878 to $2,609,878. And item O is tax levy for the tort judgment. We decreased the amount by $64,000 to $4,034,000. Item P, which is a motion to approve the tax levy for the IMRF fund, to decrease the amount by $22,878 to $6,457,122. And last, the item Q, make a motion to approve the tax levy for Social Security Fund, which will decrease by an amount of $23,000 to $3,851,000. I make a motion to approve those four items.
I, O, P, and Q, seconded by Mr. Gurl, Mrs. Gurl, Mr. Jury, Mr. Westcott. Discussion? Mr. Guevara?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If it's all right, I wouldn't mind taking out or voting on items N, S, and item T separately.
Let's see, we're not to that point yet.
Yeah.
We're on IOPQ, all relative to the health department to bring them to the same level of cut as the rest of the county, so. Any other discussion? Any objection to the motion? Mr. Schultz down as a no, otherwise it's got approval beyond that point, so items I, O, P, and Q are approved. Mr. Biondo?
Okay, I was one away, but now I'm not. Items
Yeah, you got,
like to approve, I'm sorry, to make a motion to approve N, S, and T.
let's see, do we have? Okay. Are H through T, did we have those in front of us? We haven't moved on that yet, have we? Item 10?
I haven't,
Chapman?
no, I'm just moving to approve N, S, and T right now.
Of that group, okay.
Right, is that our left?
All
Because
right.
that's the Veterans Assistance Fund, the Nursing Home Operation Fund, and the Children's Advocacy Fund.
Okay. You've heard the motion? Yeah, the question, point of order, Mr. Sweeney?
Am I still able to make a motion with this point that we're at right now in this process, I guess I'll call it?
Let's see, right now we have a motion to separate.
Yeah, it's actually a motion
Where
to...
we're at, so we have not seconded a
Yeah,
motion.
that, no,
As of yet on this, so you could, let's go right ahead.
So this is the vote on the motion to separate?
to separate N, S, and T from the rest, the unapproved ones.
Okay. Yeah, I've granted that this evening with just one board member wanted to separate, we have, so we'll continue that. So
Yeah.
your motion
Yes,
is
let's
to
just do
propose
what we've been doing.
the veterans, the nursing home, and child advocacy, NST, seconded by Mr. Guevara, Mr. Salgado. Any discussion on NST? Any objections to the motion? Clerk will call the roll.
Hoffman. Drury. Kelly. Lyon. McDonald. Nicolosi. Red. Salgado. Schultz. Sweeney. Tassoni. Webster. Westcott. Wilson. Biondo.
Yes.
Boomer. Fiducia. Girl. Gorel.
God, we haven't been here that long.
Gorel. Guevara. 18 yes, 2 no.
Okay, NS and T are approved then. Mr. Biondo?
Yes, I'm just trying to figure out what's left.
Your motion could be anything we've not voted on in the levies.
Yeah, I was, yeah, because I believe we haven't voted on H, J, K, L, M, and R.
Correct.
Make a motion to do those.
Correct, clerk? Okay. Motion is to approve those, second by Mr. Sweeney and Mr. Jury. Discussion? Any objections to the motion? Clerk will call the roll.
Jury. Kelly. Lyon. McDonald. Nicolosi. Red. Salgado. Schultz. Sweeney. Tassoni. Webster. Westcott. Wilson. Biondo.
Yes.
Boomer. Fiducia. Earl. Goro. Guevara. Hoffman. 18 yes, 2 no.
Motion's approved. Biondo?
That concludes our report.
Thank you very much. Nice job. Very nice job. And collectively, about a year ago, the amount was the same. I think we amended about $900,000 into the budget a year ago this very time as well. So it was a little about 0.5% of the total budget. Moving on.
One moment, please.
Yeah. I'm lost here. All right, zoning committee, Mr. Webster.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll try to be a little more brief than Ted. The Zoning zoning committee has 3 items for you this evening, actually 4 items. First is Z1116, and that came with unanimous approval from Zoning Board of Appeals and from Zoning Committee. This number 2 is Z13. That came with split decisions on both, from both committees. Number 3 is Z1416. That came with unanimous decisions on both committees there. And number 4 is an ordinance that's in for first reading for a layover. On number 1 and number 3, I would make a motion to suspend on both of those.
All right, item 4 is in and entered into the record for first reading.
2 and 4 are in for first reading.
2 as well, 2 and 4, okay? So they'll be entered in, and your motion is to suspend on 1 and 3?
Yes, sir.
Seconded by Mr. Kelly, Mr. Guevara, Mr. Jury, Mrs. Lyon, Mrs. Gorel, and Mr. Salgado. Any objection to suspending the rules on items 1 and 3? Hearing none, the clerk will cast a yes vote for all members present. Motion is in order. Mr. Webster.
I would make a motion to approve 1 and 3.
Seconded by Mr. Westcott, Mr. Guevara, Mr. McDowell. Pardon? Okay. I think we'll grant that. Okay. Other seconds that I miss? Mr. Salgado, sorry, okay. Any objection to the motion? Hearing none, the clerk will cast a yes vote for all members present, and those amendments are approved. Mr. Webster?
Thank you. I guess you're cut out of the roll then, Keith. That's all we have, other than to announce that the next zoning board of appeals meetings is Wednesday, October 12th. They have 5 items on the agenda, and the next zoning committee is Wednesday, October 26th. Thank you.
Thank you. Economic Development, Mr. Westcott.
Thank you, Chairman. We have no report, but I do, if we can get Mr. Dornbush busy, we'll have a meeting next Tuesday night, 5:30.
Okay. Operations and Administrative Committee, Mr. Jury.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Your Operation Administrative Committee has 2 resolutions before you this evening. The first one is a resolution to change hours of the county clerk's office on election day, and I move for its adoption.
Moved by Mr. Jury, seconded by Mr. Gurl, Mr. Nicolosi, Mr. Wilson, Mr. Hoffman, Mr. Boomer, and Mr. Guevara, right? Okay, any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Resolution's approved. Mr. Jury?
Next resolution is to reject proposal bid for auxiliary parking gates and fencing, and I move for its adoption.
Heard the motion, seconded by Mr. Gurl. Discussion? Quota too high. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Resolution's approved. Mr. Jury?
Thank you. That concludes our report.
Thank you. Public Works, Mr. Kelly.
No report.
Thank you. Mr. Fiducia, Public Safety.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Your Public Safety Committee brings forth one resolution. This resolution is extending the contracts for health care for inmates at the Winnebago County Justice Center Correctional Facility and detainees at the Winnebago County Juvenile Detention Center. I'd like to so move this, and I'd like to speak to it.
Motion, seconded by Mr. Westcott, Mr. Berry, Mr. Nicolosi, Mrs. Red, and Mr. Salgado. Go ahead, Mr. Fiducia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just so the board is aware, the U of I Medical School has had this contract. They've had it for the past 12 years, and we've kept it flatline for 12 years, and not a medical term, but they definitely haven't increased it. They're negotiating at this point, and I do not know what the negotiations are going to come out to. This was brought in front of me rather suddenly, and it's something I think last year we did too. But they're looking at a possible 4% increase of what they're charging us. And Mr. Gray is working hard to negotiate this, and I would suggest that all board members keep aware of this, and we'll try and keep you appraised of what they're going to do with us. And I so move that resolution, so.
Yeah, it's moved and seconded, correct? We did that, right? Mr. Guevara?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. When does the new contract go into effect?
The contract has expired, and so we're, I think it's 2 months we've got there. So we're trying to negotiate, get this done in another 2 months, but we're looking at other avenues and trying to keep the cost to a minimal, but they haven't increased, I guess, in the last year, 2 years, they haven't increased it, so it's coming.
Anyone else, discussion? Mrs. Goro, question?
Thank you. How much is the increase overall? You're giving me 4%, but it doesn't tell me anything.
Mr. Gregg?
2.5 million.
4% of what?
I think it's 2.5 million, isn't it? Chapman, do you recall?
First of all, I think the number they're talking about hasn't been, fully negotiated yet. The contract's about 2.5 million.
We're actually taking a little deeper dive into this because we're looking at not only the jail, but we've got a clinic that works very well. Maybe that's something that could be in the jail. You start talking about 2.5 million a year, and that got my attention, I can tell you. It doesn't seem like that long ago it was around $1 million. So there's other options that HR is going to be working on with our consultant, Williams Manning, to look at all health services that we're involved in, and let's see if there's further economy of scale. We can really negotiate from quite a leveraged position with all the lives and all the various entities we're involved in. So that's going to take a year, I'm sure, but that's in the works, too.
Is any part of this paid by Medicaid?
Yeah, if they get stuck. Yeah. It hits our limit, in other words. And we pay it, we're reimbursed at Medicaid rates, as I recall. Correct, Kim? Yes. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. So this is giving a little more time for negotiations. That's the thrust of this. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Resolution's approved. Mr. Fiducia?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Animal Service has had 1,380 calls for service. The county at this time owns 180 dogs, 355 cats, 1 horse, 2 rabbits, 1 ferret, and we have on premise 233 assorted skunks, squirrels, and wildlife. We have adopted 58 dogs, 71 cats, 2 rabbits, and 1 ferret. We have rescued 11 dogs and 14 cats. That concludes my report.
Yeah, thank you, yeah.
Skunks? We take them and we have to euthanize them out.
I'm wondering who we're paying to count all this stuff, but anyway. Any unfinished business? New business, we have appointment to New Milford Fire Protection, Kurt Rogers, fulfilling an unexpired term. And we have the Housing Authority, Dina Getty, and we also have the County Board of Health, David Helen and Louis Hoover. Those 3 are reappointments. The first is a new one, and I would like to consider at least that one this evening because it's a 3-person board and they only have 2 right now. So I'd entertain a motion to suspend the rules to consider these. Very moved. Mr. Hoffman seconds, Mr. Wilson, Mrs. Goral, and Mr. Salgado. Questions? Comments? Yeah, Mr. Westcott?
Thank you, Chairman. Is that going to include all the appointments?
All 4, yes.
Okay.
That was the intent, right?
Thank you.
Okay? All 4. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Those appointments are approved. Thank you very much. Did I suspend the rules? Jeez, okay. All right, we suspended the rules. There was no objection to suspending the rules. Now we need a motion to approve by Mr. Hoffman, second by Mr. Sweeney and Mr. Dury and Mr. Salgado. Now, discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Now the appointments are approved. Mr. Dury?
Motion to adjourn.
Seconded by Mr. Sweeney, Mr. Wilson. All those in favor? Wait, you gotta be fast. You just had a committee report. Go ahead.
It's, thank you. It's just like we got those amendments. Okay, Safe Harbor is having a problem. Have you talked with Judge Collins,
Yes.
reference that?
Yes.
And Mr. Jury is aware of it also then? Because
They're good through January, and we'll be taking that up in next month.
Now motion to adjourn.
It was moved and seconded. Did we get that? All those in favor say aye. Opposed? We're adjourned. Thank you very much.